What's going on? Welcome back to another episode of Off the Schneid. We took last week off, not on purpose. A little bit of real life got in the way. Some family was visiting. Ended up having to stay at my place for a little bit. It is what it is. It happens. And then scheduling this episode, I must have been a little bit rusty. Accidentally scheduled it for 9 p.m. my time, but it's always 7 p.m. my time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard. So here we are. Hopefully some people start to roll in because, it was scheduled incorrectly. So here we are. We're drafting, as always, 7 p.m. Mountain Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Wednesdays. We're always drafting. We're always talking a little bit of best ball. So let's get into this. Got a little beverage going on this episode. So join me if you got a beverage handy. I'm technically on vacation, doing a little golf tournament with the boys this weekend. So I'm on vacation for a few days. So looking forward to that. Now, training camp has opened. Every single team is in camp officially. The Steelers reported today. So now all 32 NFL teams are in training camp, have started training camp. And that means that training camp battles have started for some pretty predominant spots and potentially fantasy production. So we're going to dig into that a little bit. Obviously, the thumbnail for the episode was Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask for who's going to be the starting quarterback of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this year. Take over for Tom Brady, who obviously retired and might be a player, owner, coach for the Raiders. We'll see how that kind of shakes out in Vegas. But no, he's definitely retired, and someone's got to take over in Tampa Bay. New offensive coordinator Dave Canales, who I really like personally. I've talked about him a little bit on this channel. Definitely a guy that I really like, and I think that he can mold one of these two quarterbacks. And in my opinion, more likely going to be Baker Mayfield, but Kyle Trask is going to get every opportunity to earn the starting role here in Tampa Bay. So the winner for this, who do I think wins this camp battle? Honestly, I would like it to be Kyle Trask. I would like to see him get a shot. Second round pick a couple years ago. He was kind of drafted to be the heir apparent to Tom Brady. Blaine Gabbert was there, who was always in that Bruce Arians system for a lot of years. He knew the system, a vet, an NFL quarterback, could get it done, I guess, in a pinch, that sort of thing. But Kyle Trask, I feel like, was drafted to be the heir apparent to Tom Brady. So here we are. He finally gets an opportunity now that, Brady's obviously moved on. But then the Buccaneers go and signed Baker Mayfield to a one-year contract. Not a huge contract at all. So it's not like the contract is going to make a difference here. Some people I've seen on Twitter and some people have talked about how, they paid Baker Mayfield. It's not like they paid him a lot of money. This is quarterback money we're talking about here. And he got $4 million. So it's not like they broke the bank to bring in Baker Mayfield. But I guess that's something you can look at. I personally don't really care about the contracts. The money doesn't matter to me. We'll see who wins in training camp and in preseason games. Realistically, I think that this camp battle is going to go down to the wire. I think that, it'll go down to the dress rehearsal preseason week 3 is when we'll know who's going to be the starting quarterback for this team. I've talked about this as well previously on this channel. Just over 3,300 yards, 3,800 yards, 33 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. That's the averages for Seattle Seahawks quarterbacks for the last 5 years, with Dave Canales being involved with that quarterback and with that offense. So there's opportunity here with the weapons that they have. Rachaad White, I really like. Cade Otton, I really like. Mike Evans is Mike Evans, and Chris Godwin does what he does. So the weapons are there for someone to succeed. The offensive line is going to be a bunch better. So I think that this is actually more of a coveted, spot position role than a lot of people are giving it credit for. I think that one of these two quarterbacks can really take off and make themselves fantasy relevant. I'm not saying that they're going to be a weekly starter or a top 12, QB1. I'm not saying that, but I think that they're going to be fantasy relevant and definitely have some spike weeks. So let's get down to it. Who do I think wins? I think it's Baker Mayfield, who's ultimately going to win the job here. But regardless of who wins, either quarterback is going to be on a short leash. They're going to give an opportunity to both guys if the other fails. So if they come out the gates and, Baker Mayfield plays honestly like he did last year, not necessarily with the LA Rams, but if he plays like he did with the Carolina Panthers, we're going to see Kyle Trask 100% next year. And I'd like to see that. I'd like to see what he has in the tank. Fairly successful at the University of Florida. He was a guy that I liked over Zach Wilson in that draft when Zach Wilson went, second overall. I liked Kyle Trask more. So I'd like to see him get an opportunity. Either way, I honestly think that we're going to see both these quarterbacks. I think we'll see both Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield start at quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2023. That's kind of my take on it. But, gun to my head, if I have to draft one of these two guys, right now I'm drafting Baker Mayfield. And I have a little bit. I've sprinkled them in a touch here and there because I think there's relevance, and again, spike weeks, especially in best ball, is where I'm targeting. But let's move on. That's an interesting one. That's the kind of the headline because it's a quarterback battle. So we'll see how it shakes out. And I'm really interested to see how preseason games, kind of play out for this team. Moving on. Carolina Panthers wide receiver room, a lot of new faces. Adam Thielen comes in on a contract. I'm not sure if it's a 1 or 2 year deal. DJ Chark comes in as well as a free agent. And then Jonathan Mingo was drafted this year. So 3 new faces joined Terrace Marshall, who's the only kind of incumbent. I wouldn't necessarily call him an incumbent starter, but I think he will be a starter this year. But either way, he's the only guy that was on this roster that should play a fantasy relevant role. Laviska Shenault is there as well, who I wouldn't say I don't hate Laviska Shenault, but I think everything that he does well, Jonathan Mingo does well as well. And he was drafted in the second round by this team. So he's going to get those opportunities over Laviska Shenault, in my opinion. Shi Smith just kind of fell on his face last year, so I really don't expect much out of him. Adam Thielen comes in. We'll see where he plays. They have him penciled in, and I typically use ourlads.com to look at the NFL team depth charts. And right now, Adam Thielen is listed as the slot receiver. I am inclined to agree with that. The best season of his career numbers wise, not necessarily touchdown wise, but his most yards, his most catches came when he played predominantly from the slot with obviously the Vikings. So, if he can get back to that, prior form, I don't think he can get all the way back there. That's for sure. He was 1,350 yards, 9 touchdowns, 113 catches, something like that off the top of my head. So he's certainly not getting back to those numbers, but he might be the most fit slot receiver on this roster. I personally like Jonathan Mingo in the slot quite a bit. I think if you get him on some slants and some crossers, some drags, things like that, and just get the ball in his hands and use him as a running back, even some, bubble screens, things like that. Let him just get the ball in his hands and move, a lot of Debo type stuff. And, just slot receiver type routes where he's going to get the ball in space and be able to use his speed and size, built like a running back, 6'2", 220, big boy, runs 4.4. So everything that I like, and he might develop into, he could develop into a true X receiver, to be honest with you. But I think that that's going to go to another guy on this roster. DJ Chark, in my opinion, kind of just a field stretcher at this point. I see a lot of MBS there, just a field stretcher, go routes, posts, things like that he can open up the middle of the field for the rest of the receiving options, which includes Hayden Hurst a little bit, but also that slot receiver, which I think could be a little bit of Mingo and definitely Adam Thielen. Thielen's 32 years old as well, hasn't exactly been a picture of health. Neither is DJ Chark. So the guy I haven't really talked about yet, and who I think will ultimately become kind of the winner of this wide receiver core for the Panthers, is the incumbent Terrace Marshall. So obviously, if you've seen my best ball exposure, I'm a big Terrace Marshall truther, fan, believer, whatever you want to call it. Really took a step forward last year, third-year wide receiver. He's the only returning player that is, in my opinion, is going to have any fantasy relevance in the wide receiver room here. So this is a guy that I'm targeting in like the 18th round. He's completely free. Again, third-year guy. He has improved in his first 2 seasons. He was the highest graded by PFF rookie wide receiver in the preseason his rookie year, obviously. So, there's pedigree there. LSU wide receivers have always been pretty tasty. So I'm willing to give him a shot. I'm willing to, drink the Kool-Aid again. And especially when he's free. It's not like we're drafting him in the 12th round. Look at where Jonathan Mingo's going and look at where Terrace Marshall's going. You're going to sit there with a straight face and tell me that 100% of the time Jonathan Mingo is the guy to own over Terrace Marshall? If you do, you're lying to me and yourself. So it just is what it is. I'm willing to take a chance on Terrace Marshall when he's free. But even though he's not, third-year guy, 6'4", 200, 4.3 speed. He has all the traits that you look for in a wide receiver. The whole coaching staff has talked this guy up all off season. He's come out and said some positive things about himself, which of course you would obviously do, but this is a guy that I'm looking at, and I think he can take a big step forward. If he had played in all 17 games last year, he's up over right around 650 yards last year with, 1 or 2 touchdowns sort of thing, if he had played all 17 games. So if he does end up being the starter here, which I think he will from week 1, I think he'll be a starter, an outside X wide receiver. I think he'll be the X wide receiver on this team. I really, really do. Out the gates from week 1. I think there's a potential that he's a 1,000-yard receiver this year. I really, really do. And that might be a bold take. And I'll do a bold take episode a little closer to the season. And I'm pretty confident I'm going to have that on my bold take episode. So there you go. That's why I think eventually kind of, grinds out a role for himself in this offense and takes off in his third year. Moving forward, we've got the Miami Dolphins backfield. A little bit of a mess. Raheem Mostert is, I guess, technically you would call the starter, the incumbent starter as well, because he was the starter last year. Jeff Wilson, who came over in a trade after week 8 with the San Francisco 49ers last year. And then Devin Achane, who they drafted in the 2023 NFL draft. So with where they're going, you would think that Devin Achane is the starter here. He's being drafted first, 118 overall, which is blasphemy to me, but he's being drafted about 118 overall. And Mostert's going, 170, something like that. And Jeff Wilson, 180, right around there, 160 for Mostert, something like that. So if you're going off ADP, the market is essentially saying that Devin Achane is, the most valuable running back in this offense. Personally, I disagree. I think he's at this moment right now, a gun to my head, if I'm doing a draft, he's the least valuable, especially considering the, at cost. Like the market is just saying that Devin Achane is going to come in and take over this backfield at 5'9", 180, 5'9", 180. Sure, he's a good pass catcher. I like Devin Achane a lot. I would have liked him in a different offense in his rookie year. I think next year we could see him being drafted even higher than he is right now in Best Ball Mania. And then, we'll kind of take it from there and see what happens, between now and then. That's another story for another day. But as it sits right now, to me, it's between Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson. So if we look at the weeks that they played together in that Miami offense, right? I think it was 9 games from week 9 to week 17, but they both missed a game and there was a bye week in there. So I think it was 9 games. Wilson outtouched Mostert 51 by 7 total touches. Let's say it like that. 7 total touches. Wilson outtouched Raheem Mostert. As far as fantasy points are concerned, Mostert was a little more, efficient over the season. And I think about 20 something more points in this Miami offense. So if you look at it that way, Raheem Mostert is the more valuable running back. But for me, the winner that's going to come out of here, and again, especially at cost, and that might be leaking into my head a little bit too much as a bias, is the at cost. He's the cheapest running back in this backfield, but I also think he's the most valuable. I really, really do. He's the most, built for an every down role running back in this backfield, in my opinion. Again, he outtouched Raheem Mostert. He had the most catches of his career, the most carries of his career, and he's the more likely running back. I should say he's the most likely running back in this offense to get goal line carries. He's not a huge guy, but he's bigger than the other two. So that's kind of how that works. And again, he knows this offense. So does Mostert. I get it. And that's another knock against A-Chain is these two guys know this offense inside and out. They've been playing in this offense for the last, 5 years or something like that. Basically their entire relevant careers. Big part of this is age as well. Raheem Mostert's 31. Jeff Wilson's 4 years younger at 27. He's still in the prime of his career. Mostert's, faster. He's the faster wide receiver, maybe a big play threat, more likely to be a big play threat. But again, a lot of times we're playing for touchdown potential. At least I am, especially in best ball. I'm looking more towards touchdown potential than the possible big play that may or may not happen if he gets the touches. So that's who I think is going to win this one. Jeff Wilson, I think, will be the guy to own as it sits right now. Obviously, we'll see what happens with Dalvin Cook, but supposedly they made him a pretty low ball offer. So who knows what's going on with Dalvin Cook. And there's also some legal issues that are going on there. So we'll see what happens with Dalvin. I don't expect him to go to Miami, if I'm being honest. And I'm picking up a lot of shares of Jeff Wilson as it sits right now. Another battle I want to talk about. The next bunch will be pretty quick here. Let's do this one first. So the running back room in Chicago. Obviously, this one's a very hot topic. Another backfield where all three running backs are being drafted more often than the Miami backfield, which is a little crazy to me because the offense for Miami is better than the offense for Chicago, no question. Tua is not a running quarterback, especially with where, what's going on with Tua. You do not want to see him take any kind of hit whatsoever. Justin Fields, definitely, absolutely, maybe the best running quarterback in the NFL right now. You can make arguments for Lamar and even, Anthony Richardson, but, Justin Fields is certainly up there. So he takes carries away from his backfield. But these three running backs here are all being drafted higher. I would say, like if you add them all up, the number's lower for the Bears than it is for the Miami Dolphins backfield, which is interesting. So how do I look at this backfield? I think, if you're looking at it through a dynasty lens, it's definitely Roschon Johnson is the most valuable, and then Khalil Herbert, and then Deontay Foreman. If we're looking at for this year, for me, I'm breaking this up into two things, but it's also real, one is more weighted than the other. So who's going to touch the ball, as a running back? Who's going to get the most carries? And how is that going to stack up? For me, it goes Khalil Herbert, Deontay Foreman, Roschon Johnson. If I'm looking at who's the third down running back, who's the pass catching running back, Roschon Johnson, Khalil Herbert, and Deontay Foreman. Which one is more valuable? Obviously, it's the running. That's what's going to get the running back points in this backfield. There's not a lot of, catches to go around. It's just typical for running, run first running quarterbacks. They just don't throw to their running backs very much. Lamar doesn't, Jalen Hurts doesn't, Justin Fields doesn't. It's just how it goes. So same thing with Anthony Richardson. I'm not, thinking that JT is going to go out and get 50 catches again. I just really, really, really do not see that happening. So who's the most valuable? Who's going to win this battle? For me, it's Khalil Herbert. He was in this offense last year. He knows the coaching staff. He knows the quarterback. He knows the offensive line. Like I said, he knows the system, and he was hyper efficient. He's been very, very efficient his entire career so far, but 5.7 yards per carry. And this is a big thing here. This is a big thing. David Montgomery, the starting running back for this offense last year, 201 carries, and he had 4 yards per carry. And then the same offense, right? The same offense in 129 carries, Khalil Herbert averaged 5.7, 1.7 yards per carry more than the starter in the exact same offense. That says a lot to me. It's not like there was some big trade where an O-lineman came in or, an offensive coordinator, a head coaching change or something like that just shifted this entire team around and really, there was no catalyst. There was no catalyst to make Khalil Herbert be that much more efficient as a rusher than David Montgomery. And I love David Montgomery as a player. I like him this year in fantasy as well, and a lot of people do. But that's something that I think gets a little bit overlooked, is how much more efficient he was than his peer. And it's not like he had 20 carries. He had 129 carries. There's a big sample size there, 700 yards, and the touchdowns weren't exactly there because Justin Fields gobbles a bunch up, and he had another running back. So do I think that, Khalil Herbert goes out there and gets 250, 300 carries? No, of course I don't. Do I think that he leads this team in carries roughly around 200? Yes, that's what I think happens with Khalil Herbert. His ADP is starting to creep up there a little bit too high for my liking. I was liking him a lot more in the 130 range. He's up to just under 120, I think 118-ish, something like that. So, ADP is creeping up there a little bit. And I think Deontay Foreman gets roughly around 100 carries as well as it sits. Obviously, injuries can derail a lot of things, but I have a hard time believing that without injury, Roschon Johnson's going to come in and just dominate this backfield. That's my concern as a rookie, especially. You got two solid vets ahead of you that can run the ball, in my opinion, as it sits right now in the NFL, better than he can. We'll see what happens. We'll see how it shakes out. But as it sits right now, my winner of this backfield is Khalil Herbert. Let's move on to another one. We got two left before we jump into a Best Ball Mania draft here. These two are not huge battles. They're just two that I wanted to talk about because they're good offenses in my opinion. So little battle for the slot receiver in Buffalo. We got Trent Sherfield and Khalil Shakir. Nyheim Hines might have eaten up a little bit of slot time on this team if he were healthy. Obviously, unfortunately, the big injury, he's done for the year. Sucks for Nyheim Hines, kind of sucks for Buffalo, but it's going to give, more opportunities to one of these two guys. I think Trent Sherfield is being completely overlooked, and I really need to sprinkle him in a little bit in some drafts, especially, when I have Josh Allen, but I don't have a wide receiver, or I get sniped on one of the wide receivers. Maybe I get one of the two tight ends, but I don't get, Khalil Shakir. I don't get Stephon Diggs. I don't get Gabe Davis. I'm going to sprinkle in a little bit of Trent Sherfield just in case he wins this battle. It sounds like Josh Allen really likes him. He's still young enough to definitely get the job done. He had the best year of his career last year. And Khalil Shakir is still pretty unproven. I do like Khalil Shakir a lot. 5th round pick a couple years ago last year. And he got a little bit of run here and there. And with Isaiah McKenzie off this team, who had a sneaky, relatively solid season last year. So all of that's going to go to somebody. And to me, it's going to be to Khalil Herbert, who was on this team last year with the same offensive coordinator. He knows this offense. He knows the quarterback, works hard. He had some production. So if he's able to gobble up the majority of that, and then, we'll see where Gabe Davis is at. I do like Gabe Davis a lot, but I think there's room, if he's not really getting the job done, I think there could be room for Khalil Shakir to take over, and maybe Gabe Davis moves into the slot. I don't know. We'll see. He clearly didn't work as like the downfield threat that they were looking for and looking to get out of Gabe Davis. Yes, he does have that big play potential, but being like a go route runner and deep threat, it just didn't really work at all for Gabe Davis last year. I think that's a big reason they brought in Deontay Hardy, and maybe Khalil Shakir can do that. I don't know if he's fast enough, but I think he ultimately wins this kind of slot battle and then definitely has a little bit of fantasy relevance this year. Last one I want to talk about, then we're going to jump into a draft. It's the third, I'm not going to call it the slot wide receiver because Cooper Kupp's obviously there, but it's the third wide receiver for the LA Rams. I think that, again, this is another offense that I think is being overlooked a little bit. It's still a very quality offense. They just didn't really have the pieces especially all together in the last few seasons. So, Matt Stafford had some injuries in there. Cooper Kupp had some injuries. Van Jefferson had some injuries. So now if they all stay together, it's going to be Cooper Kupp, obviously number one, no question. Van Jefferson, very quality. He has an 800-yard season in his, under his belt. And I see him as the number two and a very good fantasy option. And then who's going to be that number three guy? And to me, a lot of people are, let's dig into this. A lot of people are kind of hyping up Puka Nacua. I really don't see it at all. I really don't know why anyone is really on this guy. Like, sure, he's maybe a decent player, but I'm not even so sure he's better than Ben Skowronek, if I'm being honest. I just don't know where the hype is coming from. I think there's just people like a good story, maybe. They liked him in college, BYU guy, sure. He wasn't hyper athletic. He's okay, great. But Tutu Atwell, second-round pick for this team. He showed up a little bit last year. He had some big plays for this team. And I think that he's going to be the guy that wins this battle. So I'm drafting a fair amount of Tutu Atwell, actually. He has that spike week potential. He's one or two plays away, from getting into your best ball lineup. And he's absolutely free as well. You can get him every single draft in the 18th round, unless some crazy reason someone took him. Maybe you're in a draft with me. I don't know. But he's completely free and has that big play potential that we look for, again, especially in best ball. And I think that he's going to be, that Robert Woods type of player in this offense that we saw a couple of years ago, when Van Jefferson was a rookie, Cooper Kupp was going off, and Robert Woods was still relevant. That's how I see this offense. And with how bad the Rams defense is, this team is going to have to put up points to compete. Their defense is terrible. It is horrible, that Rams defense. So they're going to get scored on a ton. They're going to have to score themselves. And a guy like Matt Stafford can absolutely sling it and get the job done. He just needs the weapons. And now I think he has enough that, there's going to be some shootouts with the Rams. So weekly winner stuff, I'm looking at the Rams. I like the way that looks. And I'm going to be drafting a little bit of Tutu Atwell. That's for damn sure. So if you're in the chat, we're going to jump into a Best Ball Mania. Best Ball Mania 4. I have a total of 39. This will be my 40th Best Ball Mania draft. Let's jump in. Yep, you can follow where I'm at. There we go. Waiting for 10 people. Luckily, there's not too much going on right now. There's the slow puppies, or I believe, or the slow whatever it is. Slow puppies, I think. The super flex. Weekly winners, which is really taking its time to fill, which I don't mind because personally, I haven't drafted a single weekly winners. By the way, shout out to the Fantasy Dog Pound. Just wrapped up a live show earlier today with focus on weekly winners. So if you're interested in weekly winners, after this episode's over, go watch the Fantasy Dog Pound episode from today. Had Dooley data on. It was very, very interesting stuff. And I'll be rewatching that when I do start drafting weekly winners, because I haven't drafted any yet. I will draft a bunch. I just want to wait till it's closer to the season. So if there are any injuries that can completely kill your weekly winners rosters, I would like to avoid that. It's kind of where I'm at with the weekly winners. So missing out a little bit of value, especially sounds like Taysom Hill has just skyrocketed up boards, which hurts because I would have definitely been all over that. But c'est la vie, it is what it is. Waiting on one more, and we're good. We're rolling. I want to be pick 9 or 10. That's what I want to be. I recently looked at 8. That'll work. That should work. Got some badge bros in here. It's good to see. It actually kind of, I don't mind that on stream because it kind of normalizes drafts sometimes. See a lot of roster construction mistakes in these drafts at times that just doesn't make a lot of sense. So it's kind of frustrating when you get sniped for no reason and guys take naked whatever it seems like sometimes guys take other players just to screw people over, but typically it doesn't happen in the Badge Bros drafts. So I'm looking forward to this one. Pick 8. Oh yeah, I was going to say, I looked at my exposure the other day. It's good to do. You should always take a look at your exposures, especially, I did 50 of the puppy or whatever it was. I think it was puppy or poodle, the max entry, $53 one. I maxed that out. And obviously that changes your exposure a ton quickly, very, very quickly. I did like 30 drafts in a day. So I looked through my exposure and I have 0% somehow. I don't know how, because I like Bijan. I have 0% Bijan Robinson in my best ball mania. I have about 12 to 14% Bijan total in my portfolio, but 0% in my 39 so far best ball mania drafts, and that's a little bit unacceptable to me. I definitely need to get some Bijan exposure, and we'll most likely be taking him here in this draft unless Austin Eckler is there. I just can't really. Well, I might even justify. I might even take him over Eckler. I need that exposure at some point, so I might just force it. But Eckler will probably go. He's not going at the 1-2 turn anymore, unfortunately. Those are some good times, some good days. Cooper Kupp at 5. That's nice value there. Let's see where Travis Kelce goes. If it's between Bijan and Kelce, I'll take Bijan. Looks like an auto draft, Travis Kelce. Hopefully this guy just takes Eckler and I can feel less bad about taking Bijan, but I'm taking Bijan regardless. Oh, maybe Mike 0874 is watching this stream. So, oh well, I'll take Austin Eckler. That's annoying. I really wanted to get some Bijan exposure, but I guess it's not a race. There's lots of drafts to come. This is again only my 40th BBM, so I don't know what I'll get up to this year. I got up to 100 last year. I don't think I'll get that high. We'll see. Maybe 60 or 80, something like that. But I'm going to have to get some. I'm going to have to draft him every time that he's, that it's possible. Between the 7 to 10 range, whenever he's available, I'm going to have to start taking Bijan just to get that exposure. So we'll take Eckler. We'll start with a possible RB1 this year. I love Kellen Moore as an offensive coordinator. I would never hire him to be my head coach, but I love him as an offensive coordinator. Doesn't care about winning football games, just wants to throw up as many points as possible. So sign me up for that. So the weird one about Eckler, and then trying to stack him with Justin Herbert, is you kind of have to take him, 5th, probably 6th. I think that's where Eckler is going to settle when push comes to shove. I think he's going to settle at 6 overall, just to kind of go with the ADP for Justin Herbert, who's at 53 right now. So let's make our pick here before we keep going. So Austin Eckler, I've been drafting a ton more Chris Olave these days. I think his spike weeks are just kind of too much to pass up on, especially when he's probably going to be the wide receiver 1 in this offense. I do like, Mike Thomas a little bit, to sprinkle him in here and there. Rashid Shaheed as well. I'm not a big fan of the tight ends. Besides Taysom, I don't really consider Taysom Hill a tight end in this Saints offense. I consider him just a football player. He's going to throw the ball. He's going to run the ball a ton, and he's going to catch, some passes. But either way, Juwan Johnson, I'm just a little off on, with Foster Moreau coming in. Now Jimmy Graham comes in, which is wild. And then Taysom does eat up a little bit there as well. The running backs should get a little bit more action with, Jamal Williams coming in, Kendre Miller being drafted. So I'm kind of off the tight ends pretty much completely for the Saints. But I do like this offense in the playoffs. I like their playoff schedule a ton. They've got the New York Giants at home, the Rams on the road, which is in a dome and it's in LA anyways, and then in Tampa Bay, which is obviously Florida, not a big deal temperature-wise, weather-wise. So for the playoff schedule, I absolutely love the New Orleans Saints. So there you go. And it's easy to stack. It's easy to bring back. They play Tampa Bay again in week 17. The Rams, the Giants, super easy to stack and bring back for all of those teams and those rosters. So we'll see how this shakes out with the Chargers. I'm certainly not going to reach for Justin Herbert, but I definitely want him. Likely pick 56. So if he's there at 56, I'll take him. If he's not, then it is what it is. I'll move on and kind of do something else. So what do we got going on here? Anybody getting out line? Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes. I'm honestly trying to not take that much anymore, just because it's going to be so common. It's tough to, I guess you can get unique later in the draft for sure, but I mean, you got to bring it back with some sort of bangle, and then you probably draft another wide receiver, whether it's Tony, Moore, MVS, Rashid Shaheed. It just gets a little, I don't know. There's only so many combinations, so it's just hard to stay unique with that start. Quarterbacks are falling. That's interesting. It's a bit of a tier break for me right here after Mark Andrews goes and these elite quarterbacks go. It's a bit of a tier break because who do you take? Debo? I'm not taking pretty much any Breece Hall at this ADP. I'm not taking Josh Jacobs at this ADP. And Amari Cooper's a little bit steamed up for my liking at his ADP. So Debo, Lamar, reach for Keenan Allen. And considering drafting Austin Eckler here, there's no chance in the world that I'm reaching for Keenan Allen here. So I might just get stuck drafting Debo Samuel and hope that he gets back to where he once was. But do I have any? Don't have any correlation I can really, unless I want to reach for Judy, which I don't. So what are we doing here? Josh Allen. Yeah, this is a bad spot. This is a dead zone, really shitty spot in the draft for me. I kind of really, really hate it here. I don't know if I want to draft another running back. So I think I'll go with Debo and just trust what he says. He's basically he literally publicly stated, watch back all the film last year, hated the way he looked. He's never going to put that on film again. And to be honest, in my opinion, if Brock Purdy wins this battle, which it sounds like, he has every opportunity and the likely to be week 1 starter, that's actually better for Debo, if you ask me. It gives him, a little more rushing upside like he had a few years ago, and, potentially gives him more pass catching upside. So I don't mind Debo. He's not fun to, if I'm being honest, he's not fun to click here, but it's a shitty spot in the draft. It's very, very it's a very much a dead zone in the draft for me. And that's why I've picked up so many Lamar Jackson shares. It really is. Once those other elite quarterbacks go, so once, Hurts, Allen, Mark Andrews, it's in any order, however order they go with DK, Ridley's in this dead zone as well. He went in this draft, but Metcalf, Hurts, Andrews, Josh Allen, then it's a huge dead zone besides Lamar Jackson. So I've just been scooping up a ton of Lamar Jackson, which I don't particularly love, especially because I've been taking him a little bit naked or bringing him back with, Zay Flowers or Bateman later in the draft, likely maybe, Odell on small, very, very small occasion. So I really hate that part of the draft considering it's a 3rd round pick. That's what really kills it for me is it's a 3rd round pick, which is a high value pick, obviously, and it's a dead zone. You're just, shrugging your shoulders and clicking a name. So there you go. That's real fantasy advice there. It just kind of is what it is. It's just a shitty situation. I probably would have taken Jahmyr Gibbs. I do want to up my exposure a little bit. But as it sits right now, I'm going to take another team that, and it stacks well. So this is another team that has a good playoff schedule, in my opinion. I'm going to take Christian Watson. Good playoff schedule. They play at home Tampa Bay. I don't love that they play in Green Bay. Week 15, not the end of the world. It's still week 15. It's not week 17, 18. It's a little bit better, I guess. But then week 16 at Carolina, not a bad weather game. And then at Minnesota, week 17. That's a fantastic matchup in Minnesota, in a dome. They have a terrible defense, very, very bad secondary as well. I've been taking a ton of Christian Watson lately for a few reasons. Again, number one, Minnesota on the road kind of sucks, but it is what it is. They might be putting up some points, so that might be better. Well, it is better because they're playing in the dome. So there you go. Minnesota week 17. And it's the last game as it sits right now. So you want to sweat. That might be your guy that you're sweating for $3 million. Literally. Christian Watson might be the guy. If he goes out on Sunday Night Football, because this is a New Year's Eve, it's week 17 this year's New Year's Eve games. Right now, the Sunday night game, maybe it gets flexed, but I really don't see it because I think both these teams can at least threaten to win that division and to be a playoff team. They can at least be, in the running or be threatening to win that division or be a playoff team, both of them. So, especially the Vikings, obviously. And if the Packers are a little bit better than people think, then there you go. Obviously, it hinges on that staying as the Sunday Night Football game, but it's the last game of the week. So that could be the sweat. That could be the sweat that, and again, if he goes 100 yards, 2 touchdowns, might win somebody $3 million. And hopefully it's me. So that's kind of my thing about Christian Watson. I like his schedule. Easy to bring back again, and he works with Chris Olave for a few reasons. Both, high spike week types of guys, and they both play Tampa Bay in the playoffs. So I'm certainly going to bring this back with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers somewhere. Hard to say exactly where yet. Justin Herbert goes, so I won't be able to get him. Not the end of the world. It is what it is. I honestly wasn't expecting it. I was hopeful, but wasn't expecting it. Aaron Jones could have been a guy and then bring it back with Jordan Love. Justin Fields is in play here for sure. Chris Godwin is absolutely in play, obviously, with everything I just said about the playoff matchups. I like TJ Hawkinson. I've been drafting him a ton. So there's a lot of options here. I'm at least going to get one of those 3 guys. And Deontay Johnson goes, no concern there. So I have my pick of the litter realistically. These top 3 players would all fit nicely on my roster. And we'll see who this guy takes. And see what fits here. Yeah, might go that route. Oh, wow. Trevor Lawrence. Pretty hard to not take Justin Fields here. 7 picks past ADP. Doesn't exactly correlate with what I'm doing, but man, it's tough to not take Justin Fields here. So I'm going to have to do that. It's just too hard to not take Justin Fields in that position. If you can get him past ADP, you kind of have to pull the trigger there. And then I've got 2 options for Tampa Bay bringbacks. I've got Chris Godwin, who will probably go before I pick. I would have, Hawkinson would have been cool, but Chris Godwin will go before I pick again. But then Mike Evans is here, a guy that I think could be a candidate to be traded unless one of these quarterbacks come out and really kind of blow the doors off and they're a competitive team. I actually think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers can definitely be a competitive team this year. So will that matter? Would they still trade Mike Evans? Maybe. I don't know, but that is likely who I'm going to bring it back with, unless Chris Godwin sticks, which would be pretty sweet because I'd rather Godwin over Mike Evans, just because I think that there's potential that Mike Evans gets traded, and I do not see that for Chris Godwin. So I don't love the Baker Mayfield's deep ball. I don't love going from Tom Brady to Baker Mayfield for Mike Evans, but I don't mind it at all for Chris Godwin. So we'll see if he goes. Hopefully he stays. That would be 7 picks past ADP. That would be pretty sweet. That would mean that I'm getting value. There he goes. So no shocker there. Could go George Kittle here too and bring it back with Purdy. Maybe Purdy and Lance. I've done that a few times. Talk about that in a second here, but I'm not going to do that on this roster. I'll talk about that in a second here after I make this pick. If it's, Mike Evans goes. Interesting. So, couple options here. Could go running back. Could go Miles Sanders. Could go Cam Akers. I'm going to go with a guy that I really, really like. It's a little bit ahead of ADP. Certainly wouldn't call it a reach, but 8 points ahead of ADP. Bring it back with Debo, week 17, Jahan Dotson, a guy that I really, really like, and I've been drafting a ton of. So there you go. Bring it back there. But so what I've been doing, with the San Francisco 49ers, is if I'm drafting an elite, in my opinion, an elite quarterback, which is basically Justin Fields and above. So Joe Burrow, Lamar, I've done it a lot with, or Josh Allen, something like that. And then I'll bring it back if it's worked out where I call it Debo or Ayuk and George Kittle, something along those lines. And then I'll bring it back with both Purdy and Trey Lance. So I'm getting the San Francisco quarterback, in my opinion. I don't think Sam Darnold's realistically, in line to be a quarterback on that, starting quarterback for that team, as long as Trey Lance is still on the roster. If he gets traded, then that's better for those. That's not a bad thing for those rosters either. I'm not doing it a ton. And it's, again, only if I'm getting what I perceive as like a somewhat elite quarterback, again, like Justin Fields in this roster, would work out, but I'm not going to do that on this team. So started out Austin Eckler, Chris Olave, Deebo Samuel, Christian Watson, Justin Fields, Jahan Dotson. Not a bad start. I already know who I'll be picking with my 80th pick, but we'll wait as long as he's still there. His ADP has slowly started to creep up, and that's probably due to me, a lot of it, because I'm drafting a ton of this guy, big time believer, and we'll get there in a second. Seven picks away. Quentin Johnston, that's a little early, I think, isn't it? Maybe not. 8 points for what I just did with Jahan Dotson. So there you go. Kyle Pitts has been falling the tight ends have been falling a little bit. George Kittle, Kyle Pitts been falling a little bit lately. We'll see how that shifts or how that goes. We'll see if Kadarius Toney continues to fall. Yeah, pretty much definitely going to go running back here. And then I can bring it back with a wide receiver on the other side. unless my running back gets taken. It is a bring back player. I'll give you that hint. It's definitely a bring back player. Let's see if Mike snipes me. Wouldn't make tons of sense, but see, this kind of builds just, I don't know. It's all right, I guess. I guess for, regular season prizes too. This isn't a bad roster here. I'm going to go Rachaad White. So Rachaad White was the guy that I had in mind the whole time. Definitely a guy that I'm scooping up a ton of shares of right now. I think that he is, bold take. Maybe I'll save that for my bold takes episode that I do. But I think he catches a lot of passes, and there's super ton of opportunity to run the ball. Offensive line's a ton better. But it's the pass catching that I think is going to really, really help him out. And then again, he's going to have all the rushing potential, touchdown potential. The offensive line is a bunch better, in my opinion. This isn't a bad team. I really don't think the Bucs are a bad team. So I'll say that. Plus, brings it back from Chris Olave and Christian Watson. So, yeah, giddy up. Baltimore, Arizona. So who am I going here? I don't mind Elijah Moore. Probably won't be going with another running back here. Don't mind Elijah Moore. Don't mind Rashad Bateman here. Maybe I will go another running back. We'll see. We'll see who's there. Isaiah Pacheco is actually pretty undervalued, in my opinion, in this range. DeAndre Swift falling a ton, which I'm all right with. I won't be the guy drafting him, especially with this build. Makes 0 sense. There goes Pacheco. 4-4 build. Don't despise it, especially with Josh Jacobs. Bateman goes. I don't mind more, but it doesn't make an incredible amount of sense with this build. First day camp practice of Javonte Williams. That's crazy to me. But again, I won't be that guy holding the bag on him. Mike Thomas. So realistically, it's between Alvin Kamara and Mike Thomas. I just have a hard time trusting Mike Thomas. I really do. But with already having Chris Olave on this build, ADP's into consideration a tiny bit, but not really. I'm going to go with Kamara here. Definitely still faces suspension, but with Eckler and White already there, I'm all right to kind of eat that risk. I don't think it's any more than a 4-game ban. That's for sure. And to be honest, if at all, there might be nothing. There might be nothing there. He might not get suspended at all. There's really not a lot of rumblings that have come out from the league or from Roger Goodell. It's all speculation, with the media and fantasy pundits like myself that are just speculating and expecting him to get suspended. This is 2 years removed. Like it happened a long time ago. So no criminal charges. It is what it is. We're going to move forward. Not that I'm trying to make light of the situation or make light of what he did and how he reacted and everything like that. Pretty despicable actions. It is what it is. He gets drunk, whatever. It happens. It's not a good thing. You need to conduct yourself better, but it's 2 years removed. So the only people that realistically remember this are, again, media members and fantasy pundits. Not a lot of people are talking about the Dalvin Cook, issues, legal issues that have come up. Not a lot of people are talking about that for some reason, but everyone wants to talk about Kamara getting in an altercation in Vegas that, it was terrible for him to do that, but it was 2 years ago and it's kind of settled. So I don't know. I just think it's kind of weird that we're kind of picking and choosing here, but either way. Definitely want to look at wide receiver. Certainly won't be drafting another running back with bye week 5. So Zach Charbonnet is pretty much off my board right now. I don't mind the Jacksonville playoff schedule at all. I like my wide receivers, so I think I can get by at this pick without a wide receiver. And Jacksonville plays Tampa, Carolina as well. I think I need to add a Carolina Panther to bring it back. If I do pick Evan Ingram, if he's there, then I need to bring it back to the Carolina Panther, who also plays Green Bay. So we'll see. But I would definitely take Evan Ingram if he's there. Don't expect him to be there. 8 points past his ADP. Tyler Boyd, I don't mind here. He doesn't exactly fit what I'm doing right this second, but I can always bring it back. Anthony Richardson, his ADP is out of friggin' control. If you ask me, he's starting to slip a little bit, and he'll move behind Dak Prescott, especially because he's not taking first team reps right now. That's massive for me. Makes zero sense for this guy not to take Evan Ingram. So of course he won't. I know. That makes no sense to not take Evan Ingram. This is what I'm talking about with some of these roster construction mistakes here. Like you have Trevor Lawrence, you reached on him 11 picks ahead of ADP, and then you don't take a falling Evan Ingram. Make it make sense. Just make it make sense. I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll take the value there. Again, fits with what I'm kind of building. I'm going to have to bring it back with the Carolina Panther. Very possible it's going to be Terrace Marshall, who I just talked up in the pre-show here. Have tons and tons of exposure to, but I'll keep drafting him as long as he's free. Good little build, in my opinion. We're at 1-3-4-1. I think that's a great start. I'm certainly happy with it. And then where are we going to go here? Definitely don't want Brian Robinson in this build with Jahan Dotson already on my roster. Could go Damian Harris. Don't want Khalil Herbert with Justin Fields on this roster. Don't want them, siphoning, sniping. Mind you, they could play off each other for advance rates and things like that. But I don't particularly want Khalil Herbert. I just don't want to take that risk with Alvin Kamara potentially being suspended. And the three-headed backfield in Chicago. Boyd's still on the board. Jeez. I do have a week 16 correlation with Austin Eckler and Damian Harris. So that's a possibility. He's definitely in play. He's one of two players in play here. We'll see what Nikki Six does. Yeah, pretty easy click on Tyler Boyd here, I think. 8 points past ADP. I think I have to take that. Works out for my bye weeks. Not that particularly matters. I have a plan for how I can bring this back later in the draft. So I'll take that value. When you can get that kind of value at wide receiver in these drafts, you kind of have to pull the trigger there. So really like the way this roster's shaping up, to be honest with you. And we're seeing Anthony Richardson fall to where he should be. I'll start gobbling up a little bit of shares of Anthony Richardson if he gets to, quarterback 15, 16, something like that. He's got to fall past, Aaron Rodgers, maybe even Goff, Russell Wilson. So maybe even lower than that. Like I'm I hardly have any exposure to Anthony Richardson. And if I do, it's in 3 quarterback builds 100% of the time. I'm not drafting him. Guys are drafting him at QB 10, which means you're saying that he's a top, a QB 1 in these leagues, in these 12-team best ball leagues. With where he's going right now, the market is saying that he's a QB 1, which to me is absolute madness and fool's gold. So everybody's trying to chase this right here. They're trying to chase Justin Fields from last year. Little do the Anthony Richardson drafters know that Justin Fields didn't do what he did until his second season. So, Anthony Richardson's not even taking first-team reps right now. Do I think he does eventually? Yeah, of course, he'll get some. Do I think he starts week 1 for the Indianapolis Colts? I'm really not so sure. I'm really, really not so sure at all. So to just pencil him in there and say that that's what's happening, I think you're taking on a lot more risk than you need to. But that's just my opinion. Just my opinion. So, 6 picks away. Anthony Richardson, Justin Herbert. So if you stop there with this, with the Justin Herbert owner, the Justin Herbert drafter, if he stops at Anthony Richardson, I'm actually all right with that. Considering he got him so far past ADP, 15 points past ADP, more than a full round past ADP. I'm all right with that when you have an elite quarterback, and I do consider Justin Herbert elite. When you have an elite quarterback like Justin Herbert with this offense, with what I expect him and a lot of people expect him to do this year, I'm all right if you take the risk on Richardson and you're done there at quarterback. I really don't mind that strategy, but still not something I would do because I just can't click Anthony Richardson's name until he falls past even 119 here. He's got to fall past that for me, way past that. Where am I going here? Could look at a tight end. I'm pretty wide open with what I can select here. I could go literally anything that I want. I don't think I'll take Tank Bigsby, even though I don't mind him with Evan Ingram here. I don't mind, kind of team stacking the tight end and running back. I don't love doing wide receiver running back unless it's, a very, very high powered offense. Not that this is not, but Tank Bigsby is not the, clear cut starter on this team. So could definitely take Darnell Mooney here with the Justin Fields play that I got past ADP. And I think that just makes too much sense to not do it. So cleared for training camp. 1,000-yard receiver 2 years ago. Should be hopefully fully healthy, ready to go. Let's go Darnell Mooney. As my 6th wide receiver? Yeah. And now I'm still open to take kind of whatever I want. Yeah. Now I don't have to take Cole Kmet. That's who I was looking at, later in the draft, where I could pair him up with Justin Fields, with Evan Ingram being there as well. And then I'm done at tight end and happy with that tight end room with those two. But I don't have to now with Darnell Mooney. It's not necessary to take 2 pass catchers with a quarterback like Justin Fields. Obviously, a lot of people say that. A lot of people know that. Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields, it's not necessary. Even Jalen Hurts, it's certainly not necessary to force 2. It's really, really not at all. So, yeah, we'll see. I'm definitely not going to take Jamal Williams. I can't stack the Saints backfield. It's just not something I'm into. I think Jalen Warren's ADP is too high. I haven't been taking him a lot because I think there's other guys below him that might have more value than him, to be honest. So I have a hard time clicking him there. If he falls, there he goes anyways. But if he falls, then I might start clicking him a little more. I could take Tank Bigsby. Don't despise that, especially because Jefferson just went. I probably would have went Van Jefferson there. Could go Rashee Rice. I am going to take a wide receiver, and it's KJ Osborne. I like KJ Osborne a lot. Watching the quarterback show, look at these stats too, by the way. That's all with Adam Thielen and Jefferson. Thielen's gone now. Yes, Jordan Addison comes in, but I still like KJ Osborne quite a bit. And watching that quarterback show on Netflix, there was like 3 times in that show so far that I've seen where Kirk Cousins just missed KJ Osborne for a big play, whether it was for a touchdown or just for a large gain. So that kind of is fresh in my mind. Plus, again, I'll go back to it with the and no difference here too. Christian Watson in week 17, but also Tyler Boyd in week 15. So I'm definitely getting some correlation there, which I like. And again, plays potentially as it sits right now. And as it sits right now, it's the final game of week 17. Sunday nighter on New Year's Eve could make for a serious New Year's Eve celebration. A $3 million New Year's Eve celebration for somebody. And again, hopefully it's me. So 7 picks away, a lot of options for me here. Running back, wide receivers pretty much off the table right now. I gotta fill out the rest of my roster before I take probably my 8th, depending on who I get as my QB2 and my tight end 2. I might stop at 2 for both those positions, which I probably will. Could potentially stop at 5 running backs, depending again on who my 4th and 5th running back are. But we'll see how this shakes out. 5 more picks. Derek Carr was obviously who I wanted there, but not the end of the world that he goes. Could definitely take Cole Kmet here and be done at tight end. Could take Devin Singletary, who I still think has tons of value. Where's my next pick? 61. Definitely can't take Taysom Hill. I could take Jordan Love. Yeah, I'm probably going to go that route. Austin Eckler is going to be in my lineup quite a bit. I feel like Rachaad White will be in my lineup. All these guys are good pass catchers. I might have thought about Devin Singletary right there, but I'm going to finish up my tight end room, stack them with Justin Fields, Cole Kmet, and Darnell Mooney. Week 17, the playoff schedule for the Chicago Bears is pretty good. Week 16 against Arizona, who I think is the worst team in the league. And then week 17 against Atlanta, who's not the greatest defense in the world. They're not the worst either, but at home in Chicago, though, as long as I get 2 touchdowns from Justin Fields to Cole Kmet in week 17, it's got a chance. But mostly I'm taking the rushing upside there with Justin Fields. Darnell Mooney doesn't have to show up in my lineup, week in, week out. That's for sure. As long as he has a couple spike weeks, 2-3 spike weeks throughout the season, which I think is certainly not asking too much of him. As long as Olave, Samuel, Watson, Dotson, even Boyd and Osborne, if they can carry me, I certainly wouldn't say that this is my favorite roster, but it's not my least favorite either. All right. Definitely, again, don't want to go wide receiver here. Could go running back, could go quarterback. So I got options. I could even bring in Brock Purdy here with the Debo. Could certainly go. I really like Kenny Gainwell. I've got a little bit too much exposure, honestly, to Kenny Gainwell. So I'm slowly trying to bring that back and then mix in. That's where I'm bringing in Jeff Wilson a lot, who I talked about pre-show. Same bye week. Week 10 is a good bye week. I don't love a lot of the running backs with bye week 10. Joe Mixon, I'm not a huge drafter of. I've been starting to get more Isaiah Pacheco, and I need to continue getting more of him. Cam Akers, I do get a fair amount of as well, but by week 10 is a pretty good filler bye week for a guy that I think can have some value right out the gate. So again, too much exposure to Kenny Gainwell. Herbert and Foreman splitting first team reps. I think it's Herbert is the guy for me, but I'm going to go Jordan Love here. Taking a lot of risk at quarterback. I think I might be done. We'll kind of see how it shakes out. I might be done at quarterback with these two. It's kind of sketchy. Bless me. Thank you. Quinn Williams, shout out there. But I might be done at quarterback at 2 here. It's a little sketchy. Definitely a little sketchy. We don't know what we got with Jordan Love. I do like his weapons, though. I really do. I think that, Jaden Reed can be a guy. Romeo Dobbs, if he can Dobbs, if he can do, a little bit better than he did last year. Musgrave and Tucker Kraft, 2 very, very good running backs, both to take the pressure off and to catch passes out of the backfield. And now week 17 game, man. Week 17 game, Christian Watson, 3 touchdowns from Jordan Love, and he runs one in, even though he doesn't run the ball a ton. QB sneak. I think I'm done at quarterback. I'm done at tight end for sure. I definitely need an 8th wide receiver for sure, at least, if not more, depending on what I get at running back here. But it's getting pretty thin. Definitely getting pretty thin at running back. Chase Brown, I don't mind. He's been free falling a little bit. Zeke Elliott's actually kind of moving up draft boards a touch. Was going to say Jerome Ford, but I can't go by week 5. I just can't, especially if I do only end up taking 5 running backs, which is in play for this build. I can't take another week 5 bye week. I just can't. There goes Jeff Wilson. That guy, Jeff Wilson was definitely in play for me there. Chuba Hubbard, I could go with. Definitely a little bit of bring back action there. Chuba Hubbard later. Fits my bye weeks like I've been babbling about. I think that Miles Sanders is the clear-cut starter there. There's been a lot of talk about, a lot of hate out there on Miles Sanders. I don't know why. I'm a big Miles Sanders drafter and believer. Khalil Shakir goes. I like Curtis Samuel a ton. If I didn't have Jahan Dotson, I would definitely look that route as well. Jawan Johnson's definitely falling a little bit, which he absolutely should be. Dawson Knox back at practice. Tyquan Thornton I really, really like. Now that Nuke Hopkins is definitely not going to New England, I really don't mind. I like my exposure to Tyquan Thornton even more. %, done at tight end. Might be done at quarterback. I don't know. It's so weird to take Justin Fields as high as you do and then still just not feel completely comfortable with the 2 quarterback build, which is really weird. It's really, really weird because, if it were Justin Herbert, I would feel better. You know what I mean? If it were Justin Herbert instead of Justin Fields, I would feel completely fine with that. And they're going in the same range. ADP is actually high, lower for Justin Fields. I'm going to go with Jayden Reed here. Finish out this Green Bay stack with the Minnesota bringback. Just makes too much sense to. I got to take at the very least an 8th wide receiver, anyways. I like Jayden Reed a lot, so might be done at wide receiver. We'll see, but I definitely need to get some running back help here. If Raheem Mostert's still there, I'll definitely take Raheem Mostert. Definitely need to sprinkle in a little more Mostert than I kind of have been. This might not be a bad spot to just make a big bet on the Minnesota Green Bay game in week 17 either. This really might be a pretty good spot to do that, actually. Not sure I have to draft them here, but I might, depending on who goes. So this is another example. I talk about this a lot on this show, avoiding big injury players, running backs especially, but running backs, I'll say, avoiding big injury running backs the year after they hurt themselves, ACL tear, and then I'm on them the next season. So with Raheem Mostert, he had a big injury 2021, avoided him 2022. He actually had a pretty good season there. And then if I'm back on him in 2023, we'll see what happens. I'm really hoping he drops. It's 15 points past his ADP. That would be absolutely massive for this build for, three running backs where I'm at. And it's very possible this guy should go wide receiver if you ask me. Maybe he can, we'll see. Nick Chubb. Yeah. He can do whatever he wants, I guess. This guy certainly shouldn't take him. He's already at 6 running backs. This guy could as well. We'll see, but I'm really hoping Mostert makes it to me. Definitely an interesting build. I don't hate it. I'm coming around now that I got that full Green Bay Minnesota stack going, that game stack, especially if it does end up being the last game of week 17, the big sweat. If I'm in the finals and I have that much going in the night game, it's going to be a fun sweat. Raheem Mostert, happy about that. Yeah, I'm thinking this is going to be a 2-6-8-2, the classic 2-6-8-2. Just draft 2 more running backs. More than likely, I'll be taking that full game stack, Ty Chandler, if he's there. Very possible that he ends up being a major factor, especially if obviously Alexander Mattison gets injured. He has been a little bit injury prone throughout his career. I'm not a big believer in Dwayne McBride this year. Just his fumbling issues in college, it's really difficult for me to look past that personally. To go from UAB, Conference USA football to the NFL and think he's not going to, have a little bit of fumbleitis. I can't get behind it. I'd much rather draft Ty Chandler personally. And I haven't been touching Madison where he's at right now personally. It's just a little bit on the high side for me, especially because this offense and the offensive coordinator / head coach has basically said that he's not going to, focus on the running backs in this offense. That's what I see. That's what, last year tells me, especially with Dalvin Cook not being on this team, right? I don't think he's going to go, oh yeah, Alexander Mattison, I'm going to use you more than Dalvin Cook. Just don't see it. So we'll see how that one shakes out. But yeah, definitely done at tight end. Probably done at wide receiver. I really would like to get a Carolina bring back though. So I got a bit of a decision to make. Could go 2-5-9-2. Could go that route. And just hope that Eckler, it would boil down to Rachaad White, I guess, and Kamara a little bit, but it would really boil down to how, if Rachaad White can carry my running back room. Obviously, Eckler will be the main carrier of my running back room, but if Rachaad White can be that other running back, and, draft as if you're right. That's what we always say. So I might just gamble on my running back room, and Mostert kind of chipping in until Kamara comes back if he gets suspended. Let's say Kamara gets suspended 4 games. Raheem Mostert shows up in my lineup twice in those 4 games. And Eckler and White, Eckler's in there all 4 games, obviously, and maybe White shows up twice. Maybe one time he's in the flex, whatever it is. But I might just draft as if I'm right and take a 9th wide receiver here. So I'm definitely going to go Ty Chandler, and I'm just going to gamble on this week 17, like I keep saying throughout this whole episode. Right now, that's scheduled to be the last game of the season. Sorry, the fantasy season. Week 17, Sunday Night Football, Vikings, Packers in Minnesota. Hopefully, I've got a big sweat for New Year's Eve, $3 million. We'll see what happens. So as long as the guy that I want is there in week 18, with my 18th pick here in the 18th round, I'm gonna gamble on this running back room and take a wide receiver. Bring it back. A lot of stacks, a lot of mini stacks, game stacks, all that kind of stuff, except for my Chicago Bears, realistically. No Atlanta Falcons, no Arizona Cardinals, no Cleveland Browns. So yeah, not a lot of correlation with the Chicago Bears, and I got a full stack with the Bears, which is interesting, but a lot of correlation other than that. So it is what it is. Can't complain too much. Can't win them all. Can't get everybody you want every draft. That's for sure. So either running back or wide receiver here. I really don't mind Michael Carter either. He's been steamed up and down. He's back down again a little bit, but he's moved up a little bit in the last couple weeks with some news in camp and with Breece Hall. Breece Hall hasn't really fallen, which is interesting to me. But I really don't mind taking Michael Carter either. Not that that's who I want, because it's definitely not who I want. Certainly won't be touching Melvin Gordon. Dwayne McBride's just the guy that, I just can't get behind. Joshua Kelly. I'm going to fade 1 pick. Sweat 1 pick. Come on, don't take the guy I want. Nicky 6. Could take Tutu Atwell. Just talking about him pre-show. Actually, that's who I'll go with if I don't get who I want here. I think this is an auto draft. I think that's an auto draft. But I'm going to bring it back. My most owned player this year, it's a bring back. Tons of correlation if I draft a Panther. I got Jacksonville, Green Bay, no Atlanta. Again, Atlanta would have been a team that I needed to have somewhere in here for kind of full correlation, but that's only week 15. I got week 16 and 17 covered with the Green Bay stack that I have, and then Evan Ingram at tight end here. Carolina, I got Tampa Bay correlation with Evan Ingram. Nice looking little roster. Not my worst, not my favorite. Definitely a team that I like, though. Started out Austin Eckler, 8th overall. From the 8th hole, Chris Olave, Deebo Samuel, Christian Watson, Justin Fields, Jahan Dotson, Rachaad White, Alvin Kamara, Evan Ingram, Tyler Boyd, Darnell Mooney, KJ Osborne, Cole Kmet, Jordan Love, Jaden Reed, Raheem Mostert, Ty Chandler, and Terrace Marshall Jr. So yeah, tons of correlation, tons of mini stacks. It's not my favorite running back room, but I like all my correlation here, my mini stacks, my game stacks. Um, Last game of week 17. Obviously, that big Bengals Bills game last year was a little bit more high profile than the Green Bay Minnesota. But what was the game last year that ended up winning $3 million? Who was the player that you needed? It was Carolina and Tampa Bay. Another division game, warm weather. This one's in a dome. Warm weather. Mike Evans went off for 3 touchdowns, 100 yards. If I can get Jordan Love to throw 3 touchdowns to Christian Watson week 17, KJ Osborne brings it back. We'll see what happens. Good looking team. Don't mind it. Definitely don't hate it. Not my best, not my worst, but there you go. That's it for today. We'll be back 100% next week, 7 p.m. Mountain Time where I live, and 9 p.m. in the East where the majority of people live. We'll be back next week 100%. My apologies for missing last week. Like I said, on Twitter and on here to start the show, a little bit of family in town, got a little bit busy, had to, accommodate that sort of thing. It is what it is. But like I said, we'll be back next week. I'm going to start mixing in some more guests again and doing a couple things different as well. Definitely going to be doing my division winners bet this year. I do it every single year, and I'll do some live stream episodes built around that where we're going through each division, going through every team, going through the rosters, talking through it, who I think can win the division and why. And then ultimately I will, finish it all off with my bet that I make at the end of kind of the preseason, usually preseason week 3. After that is when I typically will make that bet. There shouldn't be any more injuries, hopefully, happening after that. So everything should kind of be shaken out at that point. And I'll be able to put in the bet with confidence. So, stay tuned for that stuff. Hit that like and subscribe button if you don't mind on your way out. It really helps me, helps the channel, try to grow. So share it with a friend if you could. Share it on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. My @ right there. And like I always say on Off the Schneid, if you're afraid to be wrong, you will never be right. And we'll see you next week.